welcome to the first tutorial review. I'll be taking your requests if you just comment below, rate or subscribe. My voice kind of sucks, so try to bear with me a little bit. But the nice thing is that I've been doing this for a long while, so definitely if you have any questions or anything like that, comment below or just send me a message. This particular tutorial is going to be about variables and how you could use them with your RPG to determine many different things. Before we continue, you'll obviously need RPG Maker. I'll be using VxAce, and you need at least some knowledge of how to actually use RPG Maker, meaning create events, messages, and how to actually create a variable. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't need to know how to actually use it. I mean, of course, that's why you're probably watching, but before we actually continue and dive right into it, why is it not opening? Let's actually see what how you could actually use a variable in your RPG. Now, a variable is just a number. So anytime you do see a number in a video game, just think of it as a variable. So like HP, for example, stamina gain, the percentage of how much Karen will like you if you give her a berry, Harvest Moon reference. Or even, let's say, for example, damage, anything number related. Or you could even use it to calculate certain things for you as well. For example, let's say if we have a pretty mob right here, and he's pretty scary. Let's make him scary really fast. And there you go, scary. And he has, yeah, and you know what? He's a ninja, so he has a very high dodge rate. Now, a way you could use a variable to calculate how many, if you would be able to hit this ninja, would be to think about it as kind of his hit and miss chance, and create that as an event. So if you create an event called hit, and then you have a variable that will roll, that will give you random number inside a variable called hit chance. What you could then do is make a conditional branch, and I'm sorry if I'm spelling something wrong, but whatever, and have it where if hit chance is greater than, say 80, then do damage. Basically, you subtract from variable ninja HP. And we'll have this random number call a number between 1 through 100. Now, this is basically pseudocode, a very English version of programming, and that's what RPG Maker really is. It's just a very basic version of programming. So you can see here that you basically are rolling it for a certain percentage, where if it's randomly hitting greater than 80, you actually hit your target. And you could have an else case basically saying that you missed. So else do no damage, and you basically don't subtract from the ninja. And I'll definitely show you how this actually works inside the tutorial. And also, you could use variables in your game to determine outcomes of certain events. Let's say, for example, you have your introduction, you have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then your climatic ending right here. Why is that pink? Okay. And the actual ending that encompasses everything else. No, you know what? I'll put it over here. Whatever. So, we're going to have these lines that connect our story together. But the reason I wanted to make this different was because I want you guys to know that this ending is supposed to be the sum of outcomes. And what I mean is, let's now then separate your outcomes to 3 different shapes, or well, whatever, sections, variables, I don't know, whatever. And we'll just make them simple. We'll call it the good ending, the okay generic ending, and the bad ending. Now, I know I'm not really showing you how to do this in RPG Maker, but I need you to first understand how this works and how you're supposed to actually program this, so when you actually do this, you know what you're trying to accomplish rather than just going in blind. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, especially when in my younger years, is trying to wing everything, not try to get everything on, like documented down or something. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that works for most people, but for the sake of just learning how the variables work, just listen, just go with it. But anyways, so you have three possible outcomes: good, okay, basically the generic one, and we'll just call it generic, and the bad ending. And let's say you put variables to these, and you'll have a variable called sum of outcome, which is, let's just move that over here, and we'll say if the sum of outcome is greater than 1,000, you get the good ending. If you get anywhere between 200, no, actually, anywhere between 200 to 1,000, you get the generic ending. But if you get less than 200, you get the bad ending. And keep this in mind when it comes to variables, okay? So these conditions need to be met in order to actually get these particular endings. So remember, we have our chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and our actual ending. And this last chapter will be played out by whatever variable you get. So again, to get the good ending, you need the variable sum of outcome to reach greater than 1,000, or to get the generic ending, you just need the sum of outcome to be between 200 and 1,000, and the bad ending needs to be less than 200. Now, when it comes to variables, they need to explain how to actually affect the story itself. Let's say, for example, you have a character that's giving you a choice. Beautiful character. And they give you three choices. And the first choice being kill the bitch, think about killing the bitch, and actually don't kill the bitch. And then what you would do then is under these three choices, you would assign variables to them. So basically, if you kill the bitch, you increase the sum of outcome. So let's call it sum of outcome plus, say, 2. Well, 1, whatever, because, that's kind of a bad thing anyways. Well, you killed the person. Well, it depends on your story. Whatever, who cares? And so let's remember that. And then, so if you think about killing the bitch, we'll do sum of outcome plus 20. But if you end up killing the bitch, or not killing the bitch, your sum of outcome becomes plus 40. Now, with this in mind, you need to remember that because you're making these choices, it will directly affect the greater outcome. And if you have little events like this, it doesn't have to be just character interaction. It could be how involved with the game you are, like how many times that you've been into battle, and put that into a variable, or how many times you've talked to someone, and then put that the sum of outcome plus 1 each time. Or let's say you have special items that have like little stars or something. The more of these little stars that you collect, the greater the sum of outcome will be. And these variables will eventually add up and calculate at this chapter right here after you've talked to so many NPCs, collected so many items, and increased the sum of outcome by a certain amount that, let's say, you get the number 978 at the very end of the game. And once this is achieved, or once this is fully calculated after going through each slot, it then then you'll find out, at least you'll make it into an event at the very last stage to determine what ending you'll get. So in this case, he gets the generic ending from his choices in the game and from where you put these events. And same thing, so if you get greater than 1,000, you get the good, and less than 200, I mean, that's kind of a bad number anyways, but you'd have to really intentionally get the bad ending if you want to get that low. But, you could really make this whatever number you want. I mean, you could really even just have a couple of these events, and say even shave this off by a few digits or something, and just go by, I don't know what I'm doing, and just go by a set of 10, and only have 10 of these events that either give you a point or don't give you a point. It really depends on how you want to work with it. But Okay, and this is part 2 of my tutorial about variables and understanding how they work. So we'll just be picking up exactly where we left off. We were talking about the sum of outcome that you get from each event or each chapter. And whether or not you put these events in your game or not doesn't really matter. If you want to actually use them to collect certain items to increase the sum of outcome, which essentially gets a greater number, then yeah, whatever, great. Now, just do remember what we did, what I showed you here, so we can actually apply this to our game. And if you do understand this, great. You now understand pseudocode. So if you are thinking about a career in programming or anything like that, you're actually gonna be using this a lot. And I find that, especially when I was younger, like 15 years younger or so, starting with RPG Maker made my programming career a whole lot easier. And so, if you understand it, great. If you don't, either ask some questions or watch the video again. I don't really care. Well, I do, but whatever. But let's go into our game now. Let's actually open RPG Maker. There you go. And you know what? Let's start a new project. Let's not use the one that I'm working on, and we'll call it Tutor. And we'll just make a quick map. Don't really care. In fact, we're probably gonna need to make a few. You know what? Even better. I'll use the sample maps. That's terrible. Good enough. Just for the sake of recording time, we're gonna cut this a little short so I don't have to show you too many events. So we have 3 levels, and then we'll call a new map, call it Good Ending. We'll call the next one Okay Ending, and the last one Bad Ending. So we have our 3 maps. What did I do? We'll name these accordingly. We'll call the first one, well, that's the second one, but whatever. Chapter 2, we'll call that one Chapter 1, and we'll call the last one Chapter 3. And so, do remember, the sum of all of these events will essentially, you know what, let me get rid of that, will will determine what ending we get. Okay, and during this time, this little pink mark right here will be an event that calculates that for us and will teleport us or teleport our character to one of these endings. So at the very beginning, we'll make this very simple. The first thing you have to do is obviously create your variable. It doesn't matter where you do it. You could really do it inside an event. It's going to be global, so no matter where you use it, it's going to keep that number for you. But let's get a character. And we'll have them say, "Hi, how are you? Go look for the crystal for me. There are lots of rewards involved." And then we'll have a choice. "Yes, I will do this for you without the reward." Then I will think about it, but where? Here. Where do I go? No? Shut up. I'll kill you if you don't give me more. Okay, I guess I can't type. But give me whatever. So you have 3 choices. And depending on what you choose, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you choose. But let's just create a random event called, or at least a message called, okay, let me send you to where you can find it. And then we'll just make this event a little bit more global, so no matter what choice you choose, you'll get that message. But the only thing that's going to be different is going to be that variable that affects our game. So inside an event, if you go to variables or control variables, you'll find that you have your schematics for creating an actual variable itself. you'll see this ellipses on the right side, that dot dot dot. If you click it once, you'll be able to get to your variables. And you want to call this one sum of outcome. And then you want to add to it. Now, it doesn't matter. You don't have to call it. You don't have to initialize it. You don't, as long as, I mean, you basically have over 100, as many variables as you need. You just need to add to, them. It doesn't matter if they have a name or not. I mean, the name is really just for you, just so you could find the variable a lot faster. And don't forget to use some really nice names, because it starts to get confusing if you start going battle this one, then battle number 4, then basically you have 30 different battles that you got to look for. But now that we have sum of outcome created, we want to click add. And obviously this will add whatever constant value that we have. If you wanted this to randomly generate you a number through 1 through 20, well, what will happen is, excuse me, this will add a random number between 1 and 20. I'm pretty confident, I know what I want. And I want this to add 20 if we choose. Yes, I will do this. No, that's okay. We'll add 200 if they choose the more positive and obvious outcome. We will do, hold on. And what I'm doing is just I'm copying and pasting this variable so it's easier. And then, of course, if we choose the OK choice will be 100 points, and the bad one, 20. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter what you choose. You're going to eventually get this text. You know what? You probably don't even need to copy and paste that. You can just put it down here. So what's going on here is the NPC will say, "Hi, how are you? Go look for this, whatever." You get a choice. Saying yes, I will, then no, shut up, and so forth. And all the branching is really doing is just determining what values you're adding to this sum of outcome. And then, of course, at the very end, you'll get a text that will say, "Okay, let me send you there," and then it'll send you to the next area. So let's see, transfer player. We'll go to chapter 2. And right there, whatever. Okay, so first area is complete. Let's go to the second area, and then we'll find a stupid crystal. Crystal. It's not the one that says crystal, that's for sure. Okay, we'll do. You found the holy shit crystal. Crystal. And then we'll do, again, another choice. Take it, break it, or do something bad with it, even worse than breaking. Yeah, why not? And then you moved the crystal. You are somehow being transported to the final boss area place thing. Okay, so what I'm basically doing is we have a text and we have a choice, and we're going to do the same thing like chapter 1. We're going to use variables to determine how the sum of outcomes is actually progressing. So do remember we have our first level that already has something in it. We're doing our second, and then we're eventually going to do our third, which will eventually calculate to this. So let's do that right now. I guess not. So under the choice, we want to go to variables. We want to go to sum of outcome. We want to add. Again, the best option will give you 200. I don't know how break it is any better, but the OK option will give you 100, and the do something with that will give you only 20. And so it's just like last time. Again, I'm making this quite generic. I mean, if you're going to implement this into your game, you definitely want to be a little bit more creative. In fact, we're going to give the player a little bit more liberty. That if they, let's see, if they, I don't know. This is stupid. Okay. if they talk to this black crystal, we will say you gained 200 more sum of outcome points, even though that is not relevant to your quest, and this is breaking, breaking the fourth wall. And of course, you actually want to go to variables, add some outcome, 200, and we'll even spice it up a little bit and add a little noise. So, sound effects. Yeah, good enough. And then we're going to do the same thing to the third thing, to the third area. In fact, I'm just going to copy this event because it's essentially the same damn thing. And so we go there, but in fact we're just going to change the thing to a big monster thing. And I forgot to set the teleport event. I do apologize if I'm going a little fast, but I am assuming that you do know a thing or two about RPG Maker. Okay, so again we have our choices, we have our sums, and so forth, and our teleport. So now we've already done chapter 1, we've already done chapter 2, we're doing the same thing for chapter 3. Except now we have a boss, and we're going to tell the boss will say, "I will kill you." Die. The choices are now going to say, use the power of good to kill him. Turtle like a punk and tire him out. And lastly, run away. It's not your problem. Okay. Then same thing, the sum of outcomes will stay the same, but in fact at the end you ultimately still kill him, and so the boss will go, "Erg, oh my god, I'm dead. Time to see your ending." Now, this is the most important part, because we're at the third event, and looking at our little thing again, we're now going to somehow determine the sum of all these three outcomes. And how we're going to do that is actually with a condition branch. Now, what I like to do is I like to think of a random number, especially when you're doing something like this. Let's say your number is, again, 970, or for whatever reason your number is 978. You have to think about how it's going to work in the system. Like, how are you going to implement 978 if somebody had that choice programmatically? How are you supposed to implement that into your game? But what we're actually going to do for this one is you could use a conditional branch, but there's actually a lot easier way to determine your what choices that you have or how many what endings that get sent to where. But the first thing that I need you to do is create 2 new pages inside our main event, our guy that is making our last ending possible. Because again, we have 2. Well, we actually have. Well, we're gonna have to do 3 actually because of the ending. So, again, checking your chart one more time, we have the good ending, excuse me, generic ending and the bad ending. And so again, the first page will be the bad, the generic, and the good ending. And you have to do it in this order for this, or at least for this method to actually work. What we're going to do is after a certain switch is turned on, and we're going to call this switch, the first switch, we'll call it ending. So basically, when ending is turned on, the ending is happening. So, okay. And what we're also going to do is make this ending apply to each of our endings, obviously. So, our first main switch doesn't have ending. One switch is turned on, ending is also turned on as well. And basically, the last one will turn on as long as all the conditions are met. But now you have to ask yourself, how do we apply this to what we know about variables? So, just do remember the first one being the bad ending. We're going to have a variable, sum of outcome greater than, actually let's do it, greater than 1. And then sum of outcome greater than 200. And then the last sum of outcome will be greater than 1000. So what this is doing is if you have a number, say like 300, the second page will be overlapped because it'll find that on page 3 you have a conditional, well, it's not really more of a condition, where if it's above 200, it will overlap anything before it. Then same thing with this 1,000. If you have over 1,000 points, it will overlap anything before it that precedes it. So again, once that ending switch is turned on, and the other condition is met as well, events on the other pages will play out. So, excuse me, I'm really sorry. I'm kind of sick today. I shouldn't be recording. Now that we have our switch, turning that event on, and because we already have this calculating, that's pretty much it. As simple as this actually looks, all you have to do now is just input whatever places you want to teleport to. So sum of ending is greater than 1, we want to teleport to the bad ending. Remember the red fiery pit thingy? For the OK ending, I forgot. Yeah, the OK ending we're teleporting to. In fact, I'll just copy it. The OK ending we're teleporting to, our OK ending. And I failed to mention this before. The only reason that it looks like that my ending maps have something on them is because I put them before I started recording. So I do apologize if I sounded like that there's a section missing in this video. It's not. I just recorded a few times and I just sounded retarded, or I had idiots that you just don't worry about it. Just do note that I made it so you could tell the difference between the okay, good, and bad ending. I do apologize if it's a little confusing, but just the most important things are these events. So going it over one more time, after our "oh my god, I'm dead," your ending is, and so forth, a switch turns on. Once this switch turns on, it activates our ending, and then once another condition is met that the sum of outcome gets calculated, it'll transfer you to the appropriate ending. And once it's done transferring you, all you have to do now is during these either of these three maps. And depending on how you do it, of course. I mean, you don't even have to do a teleport. You could even do this on the same map. Just have it set to do more conditions as well, more switches. But essentially, you could just put a parallel process in this OK ending and